Choosing Chaos, Solo Motherhood by Choice, the podcast for women who are done waiting for the one and ready to become the parent on their own damn terms. We're talking fertility, pregnancy, emotional chaos, and the village that it takes to raise a kid. Sometimes you're crying in the bathtub. Sometimes you're crying because your toddler bit you. And sometimes you cry because you chose all of this. Welcome to motherhood, solo style. Let's get into it. Welcome to today's episode of Choosing Chaos, Solo Motherhood by Choice. I'm your host, Laura. In honor of Down Syndrome Awareness Month, we are celebrating life, love, and inclusion with Annie as she shares the story of her daughter's journey with Down syndrome. Annie courageously opens up about her personal experiences, sharing a story that is deeply vulnerable, honest, and full of love. Each year, about 1 in 700 babies are born with Down syndrome in the United States, making it the most common chromosomal condition. Advances in prenatal screening can sometimes reveal indicators, such as certain physical measurements, heart differences, or growth variations that may suggest a higher likelihood of Down syndrome before birth. While these markers provide us important medical information, they can never capture the joy, the potential, or a unique value of a child's life. Annie's story is a reminder that life is not about perfection and that the future can sometimes feel uncertain or even scary. Yet, through love, acceptance, and embracing differences, we find growth, hope, and meaning. Her story also encourages us to open our hearts and our minds to people all around us, recognizing that every person's differences are part of what makes them unique and valuable. By celebrating diversity and practicing empathy, we can create a more inclusive world, one where acceptance is the norm, not the exception. Let's dive into our conversation with Annie. Welcome, Annie, to the podcast. Just wanted to check in with you. How are you and your daughter doing these days?
We're good. Just starting first couple weeks of school, getting a rhythm going.
Yeah, it's that time of year.
Finally in that, so that's good.
Yeah. And then
How are you?
sicknesses are now going around.
I know. Luckily, she's been okay thus far, but
Good.
yeah, we'll
Yeah,
see.
I know. Weston was doing good his first 2 weeks of people returning to daycare because he's been going all through the summer. But this weekend he got hit with a ear infection on the one side and then a viral infection. I was like, you poor thing. I know.
Baby. And he's one?
Yeah, he just turned 1 2 weeks ago.
That's so exciting.
I know. So I'm hoping that, once that he hits that year mark in daycare, that things get better.
Yeah.
That's what
I
they
don't
say, at
know.
least.
Is it? I was lucky. I didn't have to send her to daycare. I mean, yeah, and she's pretty good. Knock on wood. Like we don't
Yeah.
get too terribly sick. You
That's
never
really
know these
good,
days.
though.
I
Yeah.
know. I know. It is.
Yeah.
Like, yes. And considering her diagnosis, which I know we'll talk about, but she's a very healthy girl.
Awesome.
Yeah.
For all the listeners out there, Annie is an experienced SMBC who conceived through IUI at New Hope in New York. She's faced with her daughter's prenatal Down syndrome diagnosis and has navigated both joyful and difficult challenges in early motherhood. So, Annie, can you start by sharing what led you to choose IUI and begin your single mom by choice journey?
Yeah. I mean, I think funny enough, I started looking at sperm donor websites like in my early 30s, just kind of like it's like I had a premonition that that might be the route I was going to go on, and I was just curious, like, what does this feel like, to shop basically for a donor?
Right.
Um, and then so that was my early 30s. I moved to New York City when I was 35, and I met a friend who was a little bit older than me, and she really started encouraging me to start looking at my fertility a little bit deeper. I had started with like AMH levels at my gynecologist, and they weren't great. They didn't come back great. I think it came back at like 1.1, which I know is not great, right? And that's like, if I remember correctly, kind of giving you an idea of what your reserve is of eggs, right?
Yeah.
From there, she's like, well, I'm just going to refer you to a fertility doctor. I went to a fertility doctor. Wasn't a great experience. She, I think,
Oh
was trying to
no.
be brash with me, a little bit like, I think in my head, I thought maybe I could still freeze my eggs without really understanding that at that point it was a little too late. I wouldn't get enough to really, for it to really work down the road.
Yeah.
Um, I can't say I loved that doctor. She wasn't super warm, but it also kind of gave me a little bit of a reality check, I suppose. And I remember walking out of the appointment and just like being in the middle of New York City, crying and like just being
Oh
like, "Oh my
no.
gosh, like this might not be like I missed my chance, right?"
Yeah, I'm so sorry you
So
had
I
to go through that.
Oh, thank you. It's okay. I feel like we've all kind of gone through our own little, like, I guess, sort of realizations. I feel like maybe to get to this point, I'm not sure. I really kind of started to make peace with it just not happening. And I mean, I was living in New York City, which is amazing, especially as a single woman. I was doing all these cool things, and I wasn't really going out all the time like I used to in my 20s, but
Things have
it was,
changed a little bit.
yeah, things have changed. Priorities have changed. I'm in bed by 10, but
I feel
yeah,
you.
it was just fun. And dating has just never been my it's just never been good at it, I guess. I just
Same.
always went for the wrong guys. I think I just had issues a little bit with just like intimacy and kind of connecting and I'd go on a date like every 6 months in New York just to say I did it and just to tell my friends I went on a date. It just exhausted me and I'd be like, oh, I can't go on another one. Like it was
Right.
just um
It's an
and I
emotional
would
roller coaster all on its own.
Yes, absolutely. And and I had a really good friend that she in New York, she dated, I mean, she would go on like 2 or 3 dates a week.
Oh wow. Props to her.
she was devoted, she was committed, and she found someone, she did end up finding someone, and now they have a 1-year-old. And I
Oh.
knew that like I was like, I just don't have that stamina that she has. So I just started making peace with the fact that I was like, okay, this just might not happen, but there's plenty of other ways to have a wonderful life. I could travel, I can make art, I can do all these things that I want to do that having a child will make more difficult. So cut to I guess it was New Year's Eve 2019, so right before COVID. I went to Chicago to see a friend, and she had a little boy. I think he was 3 or 4, and then she had a 4-month-old. And she was in the middle of also wanting a divorce from her husband, but they were still living together. And it was a pretty bad situation. And I just remember her telling me, just do it. She was like, just do it. And I was like, if you can tell me that as a working mother to 2 children, a 4-month-old, and you want to get a divorce, then like, I should really try. Like, this must be really
Right.
worth it to try. So I went back to New York. My plan was my 40th birthday was coming up in April. I was going to go on a huge European adventure on my own, and then I would come back and start the process. I think I had started looking into fertility clinics and started planning my trip. I had already been going to acupuncture, but I started talking with my acupuncturist about this, and she worked with like a really fancy fertility clinic in New York that I just couldn't afford, um, and the one I had, New Hope, which I had chosen, she was like, well, they're a little bit like what do they call, like a
The
what does she call it? Like a
boutique.
baby factory, I guess,
Yeah.
kind
Oh,
of thing.
that.
Where they're
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
whipping them out, and I was like, well, if they get it done, they get it done,
If their success rate is high, I'm in.
Yeah. Yeah. This is my choices. So I got on their email list basically. And I think initially it was like $350 for their initial consultation. Well, COVID happened. I was in New York City. We were locked down in the middle of March. I didn't go on my trip. And then I don't know, sometime in April, I got an email from New Hope and they were like, we're giving free online consultations. And I was like,
Sign me
okay,
up.
like, right? Like, no commitment. I don't have to leave my house. I don't have to pay you money. Let's just do it. I did that. And the doctor was just like asking me about my cycle. He's like, okay, come in next week, blah, blah, blah. And that was May, I think beginning of May, maybe. I can't really remember the trajectory, but basically, this all started in April. I was pregnant. I had an IUI June 1st. I was pregnant. I had a positive test by the middle of June. So
That was quick. Now,
it was
with
quick.
that, it was expedited. So, how did you feel through that?
I mean, it was, I mean, what a crazy time, anyways, for everybody. The world just felt crazy. You know, I wasn't
Mhm.
working. You're stuck at home, and in
Where
an
can I
odd way, it
focus
kind
my
of fit.
time? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know. It just kind of like it's like kind of weird how it all kind of fit together and just worked out, I suppose. I when they did like the AMH testing and the FSH and like it, you know, it wasn't great. I had dropped again and you know, they but I didn't know that I couldn't get pregnant, right? It wasn't like I had been trying like a lot of women are going there for. I
Right.
didn't know if I could or couldn't.
Right.
I knew so I knew that I could because I had had a pregnancy when I was 24. So, but
Yeah.
24 and 40 are completely different bodies essentially, right?
So
So
tell us a
I
little
was
bit
kind of
more about that when you were
sure.
24. I was going to ask you, but I wasn't sure if you felt
Yeah.
comfortable. Okay.
No, I'm totally fine with it. I think it's not something people talk enough about.
Yes.
So yeah, so I was 24. I was pretty late bloomer sexually, I suppose you can say, if people don't mind me saying that. It just again going back into that dating world and men and trusting and I didn't really start. I moved to LA when I was 21 years old. Or no, I'm sorry, I was 23. My mind is like I might have the worst memory. So somewhere in my early 20s, I moved there and I started experimenting a little bit more sexually and I happened to get pregnant on one of those experiences. And I knew it like right away. I had a hunch. It was very strange. And it was a situation where I had tried to use protection and couldn't speak up for myself enough, you know.
Just hard.
Yeah, I was young and it was just one of those situations. And then I found out and I was devastated, to be honest. I was devastated because I knew it wasn't right, you know. Sorry.
Yeah. No, you're okay.
Um,
It's what this is here for. If you feel you need to let out emotion, I'm here for you. I'll
no,
probably
thank
cry with
you.
you, so it's okay. Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I think people, that's something that I think was hard for me is that people don't understand that
Yeah.
just because you do it, you're not callous. So I aborted. I aborted the pregnancy
Yeah.
at 6 weeks. I was super early. I found out super early. I just knew my body well enough and everything that was going on. And I just knew it wasn't right. I didn't have any money. I didn't have a career. This person, the man was not going to be a part of my life. It would not be a part of the baby's life. We don't have to go into that, but like that, I knew all of that, you know, and I knew that this would be something where I would have to move home, which is not what I wanted, which I would have to, it would become my parents' problem, was kind of
Mm.
how I felt it would be. And I didn't want that for anybody. I wanted to be somebody. I
Yeah.
wanted to,
You moved there for a reason. You had
yeah,
hopes and dreams and whatever, and this
yeah,
one moment in life could have changed everything and all the dreams and hopes that you had. And I mean, that does anyway, but when you look at the future, sometimes it just doesn't align with where we
yeah.
want to take our life, and it doesn't make you callous at all. It just
Yeah, it's just,
it was the time of your
it
life.
was the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I think too, like, in this day and age, all the things that are happening around women's reproductive rights and back then, you know, growing up for me, I was told I could be and do anything I wanted to do. You know, women, I feel like looking back, like we were more empowered in that generation to
Mhm.
say, yes, you're going to go out there, you're going to go to college, you're going to get a job, you're going to do what you want to do, you're going to live your dreams, you know? And um of course I had friends that got married and had babies early on, but the majority of my friends didn't until like 30, you know? So
Yeah.
it was it just didn't feel right to me and that broke my heart because I knew I wanted to be a mother.
Right.
And I to me it felt like a sacrifice in a sense. Like not to say I'm like a martyr or anything, but it was just more of like I'm doing this for the good of like everybody. The
Yeah.
child, me, my family, like even the man, you know, like he didn't know about it, but it was just all of that. So
When you look at the bigger picture, it was for the best.
yeah, it was for the best. And I don't regret it. As much as it was really difficult for me, I never once regretted it. And I think the hardest part for me, because I had to wait like 2 weeks from the time I found out until the time that I could actually have the abortion. And this was in California, mind you, too, but they made me wait. And I was angry, and I was angry at the world. First of all, I was angry with my body. I was angry with my body because I was like, it wasn't matching with my emotions or my mind. It was like my body betrayed me. Which, it's funny because when women can't get pregnant, they feel the same way, right? It's just the opposite
The
feeling. And I
reverse.
hate to
Yeah.
say that, like, but I'm not trying to, downplay anybody's experience with fertility issues. But for me, it was like, this isn't something I want. Why is my body doing this? And like, yes, obviously protection, all of that are things you need to be responsible. But it was just like this, it was just like a mind game. And it was also feeling like I had to live with it in a very lonely spot because I'm a pretty open person. Obviously, I'm talking about all of this on a podcast, and all my good friends knew. I didn't tell my family at first at all. And I hated that I was like walking around this world and having to carry that shame and that guilt that everybody else wanted me to feel, right? And again, it goes to like, we don't think about the mother, the woman, like what they're going through in that time. And I think that's a huge issue in the pro-life, or I say anti-choice movement, that we don't consider. And a lot of times these are people that haven't dealt with it, right? And I remember saying in high school, I would never do that, but I would never tell somebody they couldn't do it, right? Until I was faced with it. And
Right.
I made the decision that I never thought that I would. And like I said, I don't regret it. So
We don't
uh
know what we would do in that situation until we are faced with it. And so I
yeah,
think we can say all day, every day, we wouldn't do something. But when it comes time to that moment to make a decision like you did, or any decision that's difficult, we really don't know how we will react.
yeah.
Never say never.
Never say never because you just don't know where you're gonna
Right.
land. You just don't. Yeah, so that was sorry, I get very heated and emotional about that because there's so much emotion around it. And again, it's that the way society shapes it for
Yes.
women. So yeah, so cut two, going back to that is like, so I knew that I could get pregnant, right?
Yes.
I knew that it was possible, but again, the age difference. And I really tried to go into this. I knew that like when women are struggling with fertility and there's so much stress and there's so much anxiety, I really tried to not go into it with that. Like kind of like I basically was like, I'm giving myself 2 IUIs and 1 IVF
Yeah.
to get pregnant. Um, I was doing acupuncture. She was having me take supplements. There was a program called Circle and Bloom, and it was like meditations you could do. So I was doing those at night. I even listened to that after the IUI. So I laid there and listened to it. Like I just really tried to go into this like very calmly, just try not to have expectation. And it worked. It worked. And it was like
Was this your first try?
that was my first try, and I got pregnant.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
With all of those low numbers. And now when I went to the clinic, they were like, I think the donor had some good sperm,
Good swimmers
fast and
there.
many. Yeah, there were a lot of good swimmers because they were like, wow, there's like blah blah blah. And I was like, okay, great. So I'm sure that helped. Yeah, so it was kind of crazy how quick it all happened. And I feel very lucky for that, because I know that that's
Some
not always
people
the case.
struggle.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And there was only really a 15% chance, I think they say. I think given my age and with IUI, it's
Yeah.
um
And it drops with each round, which is,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think that's why now this is what my past clinic had told me is that if with each round your chances of getting pregnant drop,
Oh,
but
wow.
that's why they only give you 6 rounds because after
Okay.
6 rounds, they're like the chances of you actually being successful are very slim. So like then they move you to IVF. That was just that clinic. I don't know if that's all clinics.
If you don't mind me asking, how many rounds did you do? Or what
With
was your
Wes
count?
and I did 3.
3. Okay.
Yeah. Hmm.
And then the third time it took?
Yeah, I did 2, took a break for a month because I was like, man, this is hard emotionally. And then I went back and just the timing of it was perfect. I spoke to a doctor, came in for a scan the next day, and then she's like, oh yeah, come tomorrow. We need you to come in to do this because everything's ready. Yeah. So it was like
Amazing.
prior to my ovulation peaking.
Okay. And
Yeah.
were you taking like the medications and stuff?
No. That was
Oh,
all
really?
natural for that one.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Nice.
At
Those
38, I was lucky.
those can make, oh wow, yeah. Those
Hmm.
medications can make you feel a little crazy because I did take God, I'm so bad with, like I said, the pill that will make you release more than one egg. Um, gosh,
Can't
what's the name?
think.
I know I should know the name of it, but I can't remember. The doctor had told me that the month before I had not ovulated. So I had a
Oh,
cyst. And then I think when I went in, there were two or three follicles that were possibilities of
yeah.
releasing, I suppose.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh. So you've shared that your daughter has a diagnosis. Tell me a little bit more about the process of learning about that and
sure.
understanding that news and moving forward.
Yeah. So like I said, by middle of June, I had a positive pregnancy test. I was because I was using this clinic, I'm not really familiar with other clinics and how they work, but I was able to go in once a week for blood work. I don't think I did ultrasounds at mostly blood work. And everything was progressing. It was like week by week, we're just like seeing like, how is this going? They were very much the clinic was very much like it wasn't like congratulations or it was very like, okay, yeah, looking good. They were just very nonchalant. Um,
Do this every
you
day.
know, yeah, just like, okay, let's see, we're all right, we're good. And I think that was good in a way to not because I had my own personal, euphoria happening that it was probably good to kind of come back to earth a little bit every time I went in there.
Yeah.
And what's interesting looking back is the HGB hormone that they test for in this blood work was actually really, really high every time I was going. And I have read that can be an indication of Down syndrome. Nobody said that to me. That was something I learned later.
Okay.
Um, so cut to came home for a little bit in the middle of COVID. I drove across the country, or not, I was to the middle of the country from New York and hung out, was nauseous and miserable. And I came back to New York in I think the middle of August, and I knew that I was going to be getting or could opt for the NIPT. And I told my mom, I was like, I don't want to tell anybody yet until I have this. Will tell me the gender. And I was like, I don't think the baby has Down syndrome, but I do think it's a girl. And she was like, yeah, I don't think so either. So it's just kind of funny looking at that. I came back, they did some blood markers. I ended up going to this like very bizarre women's clinic in Brooklyn because of the pandemic and insurance and everything and me not working. I got kicked onto Medicaid, even though I was I like called them and I was like, I want to increase like get a better insurance plan. And they were like, well, you're not making any money. This is the only thing we can give you. And if you don't take it, you have nothing. And I was like, okay. But in New York, it's not great. There's not a lot of people that take Medicaid. I just was kind of in a rush to find something and I couldn't go to my other gynecologist. And it was just a very interesting clinic, like, is all I can say. The midwives were lovely. It was mostly women midwives. I never saw a doctor. So I had those blood markers and they were like, everything looks great. No indications of anything. Cut to me being, so I was a wardrobe stylist in New York. So I worked on a lot of like TV and commercials and stuff. And I was on my first job back since COVID. I was in the middle of a fitting. I was making friends with the actress. She had just had a baby, and I was telling her all about everything that's going on. I was so excited. And when I left the fitting, there, the midwife had called, or one of the midwives had called, and I had to go back out and go shopping for this commercial and fitting. And I went to Brooklyn, downtown Brooklyn. I parked the car, came upstairs, got something to eat, called them back. She wasn't available. Sat down, take like one bite of my food, and she calls me back. And she's like, your test results came back, and there's a 98% chance your child has trisomy 21. And I was like, what? Like, I was just, no, like, hey, are you sitting down? Are you driving? Like, no preparation at
Right
all.
to it.
She just blurted it out. And this is a problem that a lot of people in the Down syndrome community talk about is the deliverance of this news, and that a lot of times medical providers just don't do it in the best way or aren't sure how to do it.
Maybe this is an educational opportunity for those in the medical field.
Yes. And there's a lot of people that actually advocate and do that too, like with these gift baskets and just all sorts of things happening because there's because that can affect somebody no matter what stage they're in or what their views are or anything. It's a traumatizing experience for a lot of people. And um, while they're not therapists, there should still be some compassion, or at least just kind of like, I just wish she would have asked me, like, are you sitting down? But because I was literally standing, I'm in the middle of a park in Brooklyn. All these people are, I mean, going all around me. I literally felt like the world stopped. Um, and I had to ask her, I was like, that's Down syndrome, right? And she's like, yes. And I was like, what are the chances? And she's like, well, I have seen it come back, or this being a false positive, but, blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, okay. And she was just like, well, the maternal fetal doctor will follow up with you for an amnio. And that was literally the conversation. That was it.
How'd you feel about hearing about an amnio?
Um, to be honest, it didn't scare me as much as the news did at the time.
Really?
Sorry.
What about receiving that news had caused some feelings for you?
I mean, I completely broke down. I was just in complete shock. I'd never met anybody with Down syndrome in my life. I didn't really know anything about it at all, to be honest, besides maybe some things you see in pop culture or things you say or people say, words they use. I just didn't know anything. And I felt incredibly, I guess, paralyzed in a sense, because I had just spent almost 3 months ecstatic about my future and this child's future. I basically went back to that job and I was like, sorry, peace out. I can't do this job. It was already so stressful. I've never walked out on a job in 20 years of my life or 20 years of my career that I had been doing that. But I was just like, there's just no way I can deal with that. And I just remember going home. I mean, I'm calling like my best friends, my sister who's a nurse practitioner, my parents. Everybody's trying to do research online. They're saying, well, I know this story of this person where the test came back false positive and all of these things. Everybody's trying to make me feel better. But I just kind of knew. I just was like, I think a 98% chance is pretty high.
Right.
So the maternal fetal doctor called. I made an appointment. I think it was like 3 days later, maybe. One of my best friends went with me. We had to go like deep into Brooklyn. We walk up to this place, again, Medicaid in New York. And the maternal fetal medicine doctor shared an office with a pediatrist.
You're like, great.
Yeah,
I can get my feet checked while I get my baby checked.
yeah, I'm like, what is going on? Like, where are we? Like, I'm supposed to get an amnio here. It
Who's
turned
doing
out,
it? The podiatrist or the
yeah, like it was just, I mean, comical in a sense. Like, it's not like I was scared. My friend and I were just like laughing, like, what is happening? Luckily, my friend that was with me, like, she had gone through some fertility stuff and did a lot of research in New York. And this doctor that I saw had actually like worked and studied with the doctor that my friend saw. So she kind of like was like, look, this is great. She's great. You're going to be okay.
Good.
But we sat down and I immediately was like, I want to terminate. Like that's where I thought I was,
Yeah.
And she didn't stop me. She didn't, she just was like, okay. But I knew I wanted to do the amnio because I wanted to be sure. For me, it was more of like I just needed to know, right? I just needed confirmation before I made this decision.
Right.
And I guess medically, I'm not so scared. I mean, the chances are pretty low that an amnio is dangerous. It's pretty low. Of course, it made me a little bit nervous when I actually went in for it. But I remember, so basically that happened. But she was like, I wasn't far enough along yet to get an amnio. Well, I think I had to wait until I was 16 or 17 weeks.
At that point, it's risky, right, to terminate?
In New York, I think you could terminate up to 24 weeks.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I didn't really look into that part yet because I think I basically went home that night, walked into my front door and asked myself, how will I know if I've changed my mind? Because having already been through it once and knowing so sure that I didn't, it was not right, the difference this time was I want a kid. Like I
Yeah.
paid to do this, you know, like I
Right.
bought sperm, like I wanted this. So how am I going to know if I change my mind? And I woke up the next morning, and I was like, I don't want to feel this way. I mean, those nights were horrible. I would just toss and turn. It was like a death. It was like worse than when my father passed away. It was just, I just did not want to feel that way anymore. I also didn't want to have to go through it again. I was like, what are the chances of it working again? Like, what, that was a feeling. And I started researching, and I was like, okay, like what would this mean? You know, because my sister, who's a nurse practitioner, was like, look, out of all the she was a pediatric nurse practitioner. She was like, of all the diagnoses you could get prenatal or for a child with a disability, she's like, Down syndrome is like really not that bad. Like kind of like it's the least
Yeah.
horrific or that you would think in your mind.
I think back to your previous point, a lot of us don't know enough about it. And then what all does that involve? Having a child that has Down syndrome. And I think we need to just be educated a little bit more so that we do understand this isn't a life or death diagnosis.
Yeah.
They can still live a really good life.
Yes.
Yeah.
And exactly, you're exactly right. And I didn't know those things. And so that's what I started looking at. I read blog posts about women who did terminate. I was looking at health insurance, education, life expectancy, you know, getting on social media and seeing so many families. I mean, social media was huge for me in my decision because I saw so many families advocating for their child, loving their child, having a great life. I learned that 98% of something in there, above the 90s, I don't want to quote exact because I have like the worst memory when it comes to that stuff, but like 98% of people with Down syndrome are happy with their lives. They're happy with the way they look. How many of typical people can say those things? I was like, well, okay, so you know, like she doesn't seem like she's gonna suffer. I did
Mhm.
find out also that she was a girl. So, anyways, but obviously we would know she's a girl. There was just all these things that I was finding out that were more positive than negative, and seeing these families that just were happy and loved their kids. And there's a lower chance of divorce in families that had children with Down syndrome. Like all of these things
Oh,
that,
wow.
yeah, it's so that were just really interesting. And of course, there are medical concerns that come along. There was a higher rate of stillbirth given my age and with Down syndrome.
Do you know
There's
why
heart
that
issues.
is?
Um, well, one, I guess with age, I think it's more common still, you know, just having complications. And with Down syndrome, I think because people don't like to say that there's a spectrum, but I do kind of think that there is. That's a personal feeling, and it's just the way for my brain to kind of process it is like, you know, there are people that lose their pregnancies with Down syndrome. There are people that, you know, their child doesn't make it after. I have two friends just here in my city that have children that are my daughter's age that they did have open heart surgery within like the first couple months of their baby's lives. Like,
Wow.
so yes, there are things that can happen. It's not, you know, it's not a sure thing. You are taking a chance.
But
Sorry,
they
go
have
ahead.
all these markers, right, for Downs. Like I know you were about to say about the heart. What are some of those other markers? The neck. There's something about the
Yes,
neck, but then
the
there's a
neck,
few other ones.
there's a nasal bone. They can see that in prenatal in your scans. Sometimes high drops can be really common. I think that's what it's called, high drops, where like there's an issue with the fluid, and then there's sometimes kidney issues, I believe. So there are definitely markers. I did not have any of those. So
But
had I not done the NIPT, we
you
wouldn't have
wouldn't have
known
known.
until. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with those markers, though, that could be a reason for this stillbirth, right? Because if there's a heart defect or a kidney
Yes.
issue or a nasal cavity issue, then they might not be able to breathe right. All of that sort of makes sense.
Yes. Yes. There's a higher chance with that diagnosis, but I mean, anybody that happens to typical babies too, right? There's
Right.
no guarantee anywhere. So,
So with that in
um,
the back of your mind, as you were continuing through your pregnancy, how did you overcome any feelings you had about potentially losing her after the decision of keeping her?
Um, Gosh, I don't even know. I never really thought about it in that way, I guess. Well, one, I was on Zoloft,
Well, that'll
which
help.
definitely helped my anxiety. So I feel like that really did kind of keep me even, with
Right.
that, if not letting my mind go too far down a rabbit hole. I had, a great doctor. Once I hit 36 weeks, I think it was, I was going in like twice a week for ultrasounds and where they hook you up to the thing and it's just which is like so old school. I don't know how they don't have something more modern, but
Yeah. I was going at the same time, so I get it. I forget what it's called, but it's like the
yeah.
stress test.
Yeah, yeah. And like sometimes there would be like issues where they couldn't find her or her heart, and then they would make me drink juice and like I don't know. I have looking back, I guess I'm proud of myself. Like I did handle it pretty well. Like I really tried to not obsess over that. Or maybe it was just a gut feeling that I don't know, I don't know. Sometimes I like to think I have good gut feelings. Like had a lot of experiences in my life, but I don't know. I think I really researched a lot in that time too, just about when she is here
Yeah.
and um how to give her the best possible healthy life. And I think that that kept me moving forward. To be honest, we were incredibly lucky. Like she did have a few small holes in her heart, but they all ended up closing by 9 months. And we were released from cardiology. We didn't have to have surgery. She did have a NICU stay, and I did have to have a C-section, which was terrifying, but I did it. We did it.
We made it.
We made it. My sister was there with me, again, the one that's a nurse practitioner, and she had
Oh,
already had three C-sections, so she was the best, to keep me calm. And
yeah. She was a seasoned C-sectioner.
yeah. And I say too, like, how did I deal with all that? As like when I announced it, like on Facebook and so my friends and family, I was like, look, like I'm not unhappy about this. I've made peace with this. I want to enjoy this. I don't want your pity. I don't want your sympathy. I want congratulations, just like any
Right.
other
Yeah.
person, right? And my family was right there with me. They were also excited. So there was never it was like there was no doubt for any of us. Like I didn't let anybody bring in any doubt. And even my doctor, like nobody ever really made me feel horrible. Nobody ever made me feel like I should terminate or I should have or this is, a bad decision or any of that. Like I will say the gynecologist, when I walked into my first appointment back here in St. Louis because I did leave New York and I came home to be with my family because of the diagnosis, I didn't know what to expect, right? And I wanted
Right.
my family around. But anyways, when I walked in that first appointment, she was like, "I'm sorry." And I was just like, "No, like, don't be sorry. There's
Yeah.
nothing to be sorry about. I am making this decision and nobody's making me make this, right?"
Right.
Going back again to it being a decision and it being, I don't, I'm not advocating to tell any other person out there that they have to have a child with Down syndrome because I did and because my situation was the way that it is. You have to make that decision for yourself and you
Yes.
have to be comfortable with it. You have to be happy with it. There are risks. You have to educate yourself and there is a little bit more work involved. Like we have therapies, we have a lot of doctor's appointments. With her, they're mostly checkups because she is healthy, but there's a lot that we do. But it doesn't bother me because I made the decision that this was
To keep
it.
her.
This was
Yep.
my life. Yeah.
Yep.
And I take responsibility for that. And I feel that that should be anybody's choice. If I was 24 and I got this diagnosis, it would be a completely different scenario. Like, even if you're married, like, I mean, that to be so young and to have to deal, me emotionally would not have been able to be the mother that I feel like I'm able to be now. Down syndrome does actually happen more so with women under 35 generally because that's a higher population of women having babies, right? So it can still happen at any time. It's not just when you're above
Older.
the age of 35. Yes, of course,
Yeah.
your chances go up, but there's less women at 40 having babies. It's like that's how the statistics work out, if that makes sense. I know a lot of moms that are much younger than me that have children with Down syndrome. And so yeah, it's So like what's cool is the Down syndrome community is absolutely amazing, and there's so many groups to be involved in and people ready to they call it the lucky few because everybody sees themselves as so lucky to have a child with Down syndrome because they are incredible people. And again, I didn't know that. Sorry.
Oh, you're
Um,
okay.
so yeah, so it's like there's so much support.
Yeah.
And I've met other parents even like through her therapies and stuff where they have a genetic diagnosis that is very rare. And they don't always have like these support systems that we have in the Down syndrome community.
Right.
And that is just amazing. Anyway, so there's like a birth group on Facebook you can get in. Like, so the January to June every year, you're put into a birth group. You can all kind of have conversations and help each other out. And there was a woman in our birth group, and she was around my age, and her child did die of stillbirth, and it
Oh
was
gosh.
horribly heartbreaking for her. There was another one where he needed a heart transplant, and he was in a state where because there are still states that can deny a person with Down syndrome a heart transplant,
Oh
and
gosh.
they lost their child. Yeah, it's terrible.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So, and I didn't know things like that because if you're not in that world, you just don't really think about those things. So yeah, so it's like I would say the majority is, amazing, but yes, there are complications and there are things that can happen. Like childhood leukemia is under the age of 5 can be very common. It's usually pretty curable, but again, there was a family on Instagram, they lost their little girl and to that, and it was just horrific, it was so sad. I just feel so lucky because we have been so lucky. Like we've just been so lucky. Now, of course, there's fears of things that happen down the road or because I'm older and like what happens to her when I'm gone. And those are things you work out. And,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, she's amazing. She's amazing. She's hilarious. She just makes me laugh every single day, all day long. She is adorable and is just the light of my life. And I wouldn't if somebody could come to me and say, would you, if we could reverse her Down syndrome right here and now, would you do it? And I would say no, because it makes her exactly who she is.
That's so sweet.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. She is like,
Now you got me crying. But
sorry.
that's okay. No, you're okay.
Yeah, there actually is in Japan, they did a study recently that came out that they were able to remove the extra chromosome in some cells. And there was a big debate in the comments. And God, so, I mean, some of the comments were horrible, and I see that all the time online.
Yeah.
Um, to say that we don't get stared at in public would be a lie. We do. Um, we're getting to a point now that she's older that we actually get more kids looking and being curious than we do parents. But sometimes I'll see the mom that will walk by us and look at the baby or look at Sabina and they don't smile, and
Oh.
it makes me it makes me sad because I don't know what's going on in their minds. Of course, I'm making things up. Like, are they thinking, I'm glad that's not me? Or me, I don't know, who knows? But maybe they had their own experiences in some sort of way that triggers them or whatever. But um,
What do you
I don't
wish those parents knew more about before judging?
know that there's nothing to be scared of. I think what's amazing now is the inclusion that happens at school, which I'm terrified could be taken away. When I look back on growing up, I graduated high school in 1980, 98. I'm sorry, you obviously weren't too far behind me, I suppose. And in high school, the kids with Down syndrome, the kids with disabilities were in one room. We never saw them.
Yeah.
They ate lunch together. They weren't with us.
We were very
I would walk,
segregated back then.
yeah, I would walk by that room and feel nervous. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to act. And I
Yeah.
only ever knew one person really with a disability growing up, and it was a friend's sister, and she had cerebral palsy and pretty severely. Um, but I didn't know what to do. I was scared too. And so you can't fault people for being scared or not knowing, because I didn't either. Also, being in this community, coming into it, I'm not religious. I'm obviously very pro-choice, and that worried me a little bit walking into this, because I'm like, well, there are a lot of very religious people, a lot of pro-life. How do you fit in? And I have found people that are like just like me, but it's harder to speak up sometimes. But I had like a local friend, and she's super anti-choice and all of that, and we would kind of get into it a little bit. And the answer to that is not forcing. It's not saying you have to have this child, any child. It's education. It's having this conversation I'm having with you, that if anybody listening to this, it helps them at all, wherever they are in their journey, or with their children. Maybe their kid has a friend with Down syndrome at school, or a kid with autism, severe autism, that they're being friends. I mean, all of that. I feel like all of this plays into that, where educating ourselves on those differences and is the way forward, I suppose. And again, looking like, so Denmark and Iceland actually have like almost a 99% termination rate for Down syndrome. So they've almost like eradicated it, which are like countries that like I respect for so many reasons, right? Like not to get political, but like, Denmark, I love that kind of Scandinavian, those vibes, the way they govern. And Iceland has, they're like one of the few countries that matches women's pay to men, and they have a lot of people in government there, I believe, and a lot of like women CEOs. And so it's like, man, like, why, for these places that also are so socially democratic, wanting to give everybody an opportunity. And I get it, like, in a sense, they're like, okay, well, it's a drain on the healthcare system, it's all of those kinds of things. And I'm like, but
Cancer is,
yeah,
and all these diabetes,
yeah. And if you could
heart
if you
disease.
could find out you were going to have cancer, prenatal, would you terminate that pregnancy? Like,
Right?
if you really want a child, again, it goes back to that choice of, I really wanted a child, and that's what led me to having her. But yeah, it's so nuanced and complicated, and yeah, go ahead.
How
I could
how
talk for
has
hours.
No, you're good. How has your daughter changed the way you see motherhood and yourself?
I think she has made me slow down in a lot of ways to enjoy really simple things. I feel like I was always chasing things before. And so I think that, not sure if that's her diagnosis or her, or just being a mom, where you just kind of stop chasing certain things that just don't matter anymore. But I think her diagnosis also makes me have so much more empathy for people that do have disabilities, and just being in a world that I was not part of before. And just her sheer, like, just how funny she is and loving, and like, just will be out in public and she just waves to everybody and says, hi, hi. She's just like, that she's just the sweetest, most innocent, happy kid. And I think I don't know, it's just really left me in a place where I just know what matters now, and simplifies things.
What I would say to the people who are out there staring at little children who have some form of a disability or difference, shame on you, because they're the most amazing little gifts from God, and or whoever you believe in. But they didn't choose this. Nobody chose this for them. And honestly, like, they're still so amazing, and they're gonna live in a happy life no matter what that looks like. And so, like, shame on anybody who judges a child or stares at a child who is different.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. And I think I try to think back, like, did I do that? Did I stare at, did I judge? I don't really know. I don't remember. But I think it's like her and I,
Yeah.
like, all of those stares, even though they can make me mad. And sometimes it's also the opposite, where it's like people are so nice. They're like so in your face. And like, sometimes it will be because they're like, oh, my uncle had Down syndrome, or there's a family member they know of. And so they're excited. Which is amazing. That just goes to show you that it's just not this bad thing. It's actually super amazing. And for somebody to come up to you and say, they're so excited to meet your kid because their uncle had Down syndrome. But like, it just like kind of left me in this where I'm like, okay, it's me and her. And like, none of those people matter.
No.
Anybody that's going to judge her. I get scared about school. I mean, right now she's at preschool and like, the kids are great. Like they're so great with her. But I know that that will probably get more difficult as she gets older. So that kind of stuff scares me. But I guess what kid doesn't get picked on, at
Yeah.
some point.
But do
Um,
you think it's a nature versus nurture type of thing?
probably a combo. Probably a combo of, the typical bully scenario where they're having difficulty at home and so they come to school and let it out, or maybe they're fearful. I mean, in a sense, like when I see kids stare at her, I have to remind myself like they're a kid, and like you can't really be mad at them. They're a kid. They're curious. You need to let them be curious. But that's the thing about inclusion though, is that these kids they're each grade that they have a child with a disability in their class. There's just more tolerance and more acceptance, right? And that goes
Right.
with race, that goes with religion, all of that. Like being exposed is huge. Um, and I know
Yeah.
there's a lot of pushback in the world right now just with all of that, and I would hate to see so much of that disappear because if we can't understand each other, humans will never evolve. you know?
I mean, we're
And
kind
that's
of
why I'm
going
proud to have a
backwards.
child with Down syndrome. I'm proud to have her. I'm proud to say, hey, look, like it's okay to be different, you
Yes,
know,
absolutely.
and not
Yeah.
be perfect.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, nobody's perfect. So, I mean, that helps too to look at it from that perspective is we're just all unique in our own ways.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
She just needs a little extra love and support and attention from the medical teams.
yeah. But I don't, like I said, I don't mind it because it's interesting to me in a sense, and we make friends at therapy and love her therapists, and
I love her.
they do, and at school they adore her. She's like a little rock star when she walks down the hall. Like all the
Oh.
teachers are saying hi to her, and like so it's so sweet to see that effect that she has on people.
When you think back on your journey from your IUI to your navigating unexpected challenges and the NICU as well, what stands out as the most transformative part for you?
I think from the moment that I decided that I was going to keep her, um, because it was like I woke up one morning, and I feel like by the end of that day, I knew. And I had called my parent. I'd asked people straight up. I asked one of my best friends that I trust wholeheartedly. She knows me so well. And I was like, what do you think? And she was like, I want you to have this baby. And my mom said that. And it was like having the trust of people you love that you can do this, that I can do this, because I wasn't sure that I could, um, was huge. And it was like such a quick turnaround.
Mhm.
But it was like I just that day I just was like I'm changing my mind, and that changed that changed everything, right? It changed everything that I knew just about who I was, who she was going to be, about that world. And from there it was just growing and building and learning, like step upon step. And so yeah, I think that was the most transformative for sure.
Your strength was sort of tested in that 24-hour period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And the people around you really knew your strength would come through.
yeah.
Mhm.
And yeah, and it just helps. Because when you're going it alone, as this podcast as well, right?
Yeah.
I know that, it's a big decision. It's a really big decision.
Yeah.
Diagnosis or not, so
Right. Yeah. It's a big decision on its own, but then you add a diagnosis. And I think we would naturally maybe question ourselves in that moment is like, am I capable of doing this all on my own, even with the support of potentially our village? But outside of that, what other support would I have through this diagnosis? But I think we're really tested, and you chose the right decision.
I think so too. And look, I mean, I left my whole life. I lived in New York and LA. I left my friends. I left my career. And like, I am not living where I want to live. This is not my ideal. I'm basically living with my mother so that I can be with Sabina and take her to therapies. And now I
No
like have a
judgment.
kid vintage business and trying to make art and but taking care of my mom and like I'm like, wow, this is, yeah. I mean, there's days when I'm like, oh my gosh, this is not where I saw myself when I was 24. But I wouldn't trade it because she's here. And life is just a series of moments and adventures and like nothing's forever. And um, and I'm lucky that like I'm in a position that like I know some people don't have that support, especially becoming, and that's a whole other ball game, right?
Yeah.
I'm lucky that I do get to have my own business and be with her. Yeah. So, uh, yeah.
What advice or encouragement would you give to other single moms by choice who are facing uncertainty during their pregnancy or their postpartum journey?
Trust your gut. It's there. You just gotta trust your gut. Just listen. Like, yeah. I think at the end of the day, like, you deep down know. I really do.
Yeah. Just sit with it for a little bit and then make your decision.
Yeah. And I think if like the same thought keeps coming up over and over, that's telling you something.
Yeah. What do you hope your daughter will one day understand about your journey to becoming a mom?
Whew. Well, that's difficult. Again, given her diagnosis of like when to tell her um about that journey and what it will mean to her. And I'm not really sure, but I just wanted her to know that I wanted her. I wanted her and she's the best thing in the whole wide world.
Aw.
And yeah,
Is
so
there anything you want to say to her?
I love you and don't stop being you ever. And just that I hope she finds the things that make her happy, whatever that might be. I have
Mhm.
hopes for her to be an artist. People with Down syndrome are like amazingly creative, but I won't put, she can be whatever she wants to be. But I really just hope that she finds that and she finds a world that is accepting of that and of her. And if they aren't, to say screw you and still do it. Still be you.
Maybe the best way to express herself is through her art in the future.
Yes. And yes. And I think that's what I love about people with Down syndrome and their art is that it comes from such a pure place. I've always been creative and been an artist, and like I'm in like a stagnant spot because I'm feeling like I'm just stuck. I'm stuck in like this like thinking too much, and I think that losing that inhibition, which I feel like people with Down syndrome are often able to do, it just makes for some really great art.
Thank you so much, Annie, for sharing
Thank
your
you.
vulnerable story and your powerful story with the listeners. Is there anything else you want to say to the people out there?
Um, oh man, I mean so much, right? I'm just kidding. Just
Book another hour.
smile. Yeah, right. Um, if you come across somebody with Down syndrome, don't be scared and smile and don't stare. Move on. Just smile, say hi, move on. I don't know. Just yeah, I don't know. I guess that's it. It's just like just be open-minded.
Open minded to the fact that everybody's different
Yeah.
in
And
one way
that
or another.
regardless of what you see in that person, they have people with Down syndrome still have hearts and still have feelings, and they're very, very sympathetic. I've just read so many times that they can sense that, like before other people can. They can just sense other people's feelings and emotions and stuff.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah, because sometimes communication is harder, and so people assume they're not smart or that they're not paying attention. But it's just a lack of communication, and I think that comes with this like ability to kind of very much feel for other people, if that makes
This
sense.
superpower.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. Oh my God, that's so cute.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again. This has been a very wonderful topic to talk about. And
Thank you. I thank you for having me and for
of
listening to
course,
my crazy story and crazy self. And
nothing
yeah.
crazy about it, Mama.
Yeah, and if people want to, I mean, I can send you some websites that you can put up that people can go
Yes,
check
please.
out and learn some things about Down syndrome.
Yes. And I think to your point earlier, like leaning into social media in a positive way this time, not usually always pushing social media, but following other people's stories out there that have downs and seeing what their life is like, what their diagnosis was like, how they're thriving through life. And that's really important.
It is important. And there's a lot of really great accounts out there that do a really good job with that. I'm not so good at it. I'm not good at being consistent. So
Same.
we did have one TikTok go viral, and I think that also scared me a little bit. I was like, I don't know that I want this kind of attention, but there are some just like really amazing accounts out there that will just make your day. Like these kiddos will just make your day.
Aw. So
Yeah.
everybody, look them up.
Yes.
And you'll be sending some resources for us.
I will for sure.
Yeah. Well, thank you again. It was
Thank
a
you.
pleasure to meet you and hear your story. And
Pleasure is
much
mine.
love to Sabina.
Thank you so much.
Yes,
Thank you.
of course. All right. We will chat soon. As we close on this episode, let's remember Annie's words and her daughter's legacy that life, no matter how short or different from what we can expect, is a gift to be celebrated. Down syndrome, like all differences, is just one part of a person's story. It does not limit the joy, love, or impact a life can have. When we choose to embrace others as they are, we honor their humanity and we teach the next generation to do the same. Inclusivity starts with us, with how we speak, how we act, and how we celebrate every single life. Annie's journey is a reminder that the most powerful way to change a world is to see the beauty within each person and to live with hearts open to acceptance. Thank you for joining us in celebrating Annie's daughter's life and for committing to a future where every life, in all its uniqueness, is cherished. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Patreon for more and for glimpses into my own journey. We're cherishing all the stories of single motherhood by choice, and we look forward to hearing from you. Until next time.